What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Big Five Pod, episode number 102. I'm, of course, your co-host, Kyle Morello. Next to me, co-host Jake Copestick. Cope, first and foremost, how was your Thanksgiving?
It was great. It was small. My Uncle Tommy from Vegas came in. My dad came in. It was good to see
Love Uncle
everybody.
Tommy.
So yeah, it was good. Very relaxing. Ate a lot. My family doesn't do turkey. Last 2 years we just done Italian food, which is
Hmm.
fine by me. So we had some
Hmm.
gnocchi, some baked ziti, chicken cutlets. It was brajol. It's a good day. Our stuffed olives that we always do. So yeah, it was good. A little unorthodox maybe, but always Thanksgiving criminally underrated holiday, Kyle. I think you
My
think.
favorite holiday,
Yeah.
first and foremost, my favorite holiday. Uh, how could you go wrong? You got family. I mean, obviously, not every family is always, the best on terms and stuff, but family is, to me at least, high priority. Football, high priority. And then food, incredible. And you guys do it different, and I love that. I am a turkey purist, so I do enjoy my turkey, but Italian dinner sounds incredible too. And then, of course, which I'm sure we'll get into, there's Feast Week on, Cope. Come on now. It's one of the best weeks of college basketball of the year. And in the first month of the year, you can't ask for much more. So yes, Thanksgiving, in my opinion, the best holiday. Seems like it's up there for you too. So I'm glad to hear it went well in the Cope Stick household. But Cope, we got a lot to talk about. Episode 102. Obviously, we had this week off for Thanksgiving. We decided to spend some time with our family, watch some Feast Week, watch some football, and eat and all that stuff. So we got some things to get into. Of course, we're going to turn it over to you for your quick hitters. So you got the ball in your hand, I see. Very nicely done. Let's go run that break. Give it to me.
Yeah, been a while, but not too much to talk about. Although, first of all, Kyle, some very sad news. Rest in peace to Basketball Hall of Famer, College Basketball Hall of Famer, an icon in the college basketball world in Luke Carnesecca. If you want to touch on some of his accomplishments at St. John's, two different stints, 24 seasons, won 526 games there, three-time Big East Coach of the Year, and really was a staple in the Big East. You certainly can't tell the story of the Big East in its heyday, in its early days, certainly without Luke Carnesecca. Uh, there's only been two Final Fours at St. John's. He is responsible for one of them in 1985, which was the second one in the history of the school. During that run, if we want to get into some Big Five connections here, Kyle, during that 1985 Final Four run, St. John's beat Villanova three times. They beat them at Alumni Hall in Queens. They beat them at the Spectrum, and they beat them at the Garden in the Big East tournament. And then how about a couple years later, or excuse me, 6 years prior, they actually lost to Penn, coached by Bob Weinhauer in the Elite Eight of the 1978-1979 season, where Penn, of course, went on and they lost to Michigan State with Magic Johnson. That led to the Bird Magic championship game. But that season, St. John's, they lost to Temple in the regular season at home. They beat Villanova and St. Joe's both at the Palestra, and they actually beat Temple in the opening round of the NCAA tournament that year, and then they fell to Penn. So a lot of Big Five connections in there as well. And then, hey, not to mention, he is forever enshrined at the Cathedral of College Basketball at the Palestra, being on the wall with all the great coaches, Chris Mullin, Mark Jackson on that wall as well. So represented in Philadelphia well, but a true icon, a true icon. You cannot tell the story of college basketball without Luke Carnesecca. So rest in peace to an all-time great. Moving on, Kyle. Big Five Classic is this weekend. We'll have a future episode later this week where we're going to break down all those games. But now that we know the matchups and the tip times, I'm going to throw those out there. First, hey, inaugural Big Five Women's Classic. This year going to be held at Finneran Pavilion on Friday, December 6th. The appetizer for the men's Big Five Classic the next day. The fifth place game is going to be Penn LaSalle at 3:30. The third place game will be St. Joe's and Drexel at 5:45. And the championship game, Kyle, Diane Richardson's Temple Owl is going to play Villanova on their home court at 8 o'clock.
Yeah,
Temple with
yeah.
a strong end to their game against LaSalle on Sunday to give them a spot in the championship. So, yeah, the inaugural Big Five Women's Classic. Tip time set. We got matchups. Should be fun. Should be fun. And the first one that, of course, is now going to follow suit with the men. So we'll move on to the men now. They're obviously the next day, Saturday, December 7th at the Wells Fargo Center. The fifth place game, the Battle of 33rd Street, Drexel, Penn, that's at 2 o'clock. Third place game, Villanova versus now Temple. after the result that we'll talk about Saturday. And the championship game, St. Joe's looking to go back to back, and they will play A10 and city rival LaSalle. So we have a conference game in December, kind of, but not really, but pretty cool. Pretty cool that they're going to play at the very least 3 times and potentially more. And that is at 7 o'clock. But if we know anything about tip times, take these with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
Liable to get pushed back 30 to 45 minutes, especially after last year. The third place game between Penn and LaSalle goes to overtime. Khalil Brantley banks in the 3. So take these with a grain of salt. They're not going to be exact, most likely, but that's what it's scheduled to be now, to keep the people informed. And then, Kyle, one more note. How about some recruiting news before we get into the games of Feast Week? Penn got a commitment from 2026 forward Luke Cruz. Nice name there. He's a 6'9", 210-pound forward from Rumson Fairhaven Regional High School in North Jersey. He plays as AAU basketball for the NJ Sure Shots. Had offers from some Ivy League schools as well as some D2 schools as well, but if we're just sticking D1, Princeton, Yale, Cornell were also in on him, as well as NJIT and Boston University. And according to New York, New Jersey Sports World, he's a 4.0 student. Going to fit right in at Penn. So
Okay.
congrats to Luke. There's not too many highlights on him on YouTube, but big dude at 6'9", can shoot the 3. He'll help out with his shooting and his positional size. So congrats to Luke. Feel like we haven't talked recruiting in a while, but there
Not
we
a
go.
bad thing. It means we got games to talk about, you
Yeah,
know.
exactly. But we haven't talked recruiting in a while. We get a commitment. There we have it. Let's talk some games, Kyle.
All right, let's do it. Cope. Obviously, we're going to talk about the final game of pod play that took place on Saturday, November 30th, between Temple and LaSalle at Glacier Arena. You were there, so I'm going to kick it to you first. But your thoughts on this game? Obviously, if you don't know, which you should know, but if you don't know, LaSalle won 83-75. So, as Cope said during his quick hitters, that LaSalle will be playing St. Joe's now in the Big Five Classic Championship, and Temple will be facing Villanova in the third place game. So, first and foremost, 2 very exciting matchups. I think it's going to be a great day of hoops, and we'll get into that in our next episode later in the week. But let's go back to this one. Cope, you were there. LaSalle, very early on, was commanding the entire game. They were in control for the vast majority of the game. Temple did make a comeback in the end to cut it to a couple possessions. Ultimately, LaSalle ended up pulling away with the victory. Temple, terrible at shooting the basketball, 1 of 16 from 3 in this one, 15 turnovers. Yet they still outshot in efficiency for against LaSalle from the field, 45-40. So very interesting game, back and forth. LaSalle was dominant on the boards in the first half. Temple kind of flipped it a little bit in the second half. So your thoughts from being there, seeing it live, and also how was Glacier on the Saturday after Thanksgiving? It seemed like it was packed on TV.
Yeah, absolutely terrific atmosphere. Would have been a sellout if this game would have been held on a weekend where it wasn't a break. So the student section, not everybody was there, but everybody's on break. So totally understandable. But hey, stands are packed. Stands were packed. There was Temple fans. There was a good amount of them there, as well as LaSalle fans showed out for this one. Two sellouts in their 4 games that they've had at Glacier so far. So clearly, people are excited about the new arena, and the team's giving them something to be excited about. They're off to a 6-2 start, going for 7-2 tomorrow at Northeastern. But I'm going to get into Temple. I'll do like the bad and then the good. I'll talk about LaSalle. Temple was just flat in the first half. Adam Fisher came in the press conference after, is like, hey, we got our butts kicked. And it was the hole that Temple dug themselves in the first half that lost in this game. Because this was a 4-point game with a minute and a half left. Give Temple credit. 1 of 16 from 3. And they were still in this game. Turned the ball over 15 times to just LaSalle's 6, including 10 in the first half. Like, a lot went awry for Temple in the first half. And they still set themselves up to give themselves a chance in the second half. So that was good to see. But the first half, like I mentioned, 10 turnovers, out rebounded on the offensive glass 13-5 by LaSalle. LaSalle poured in 20 second chance points over the course of this one. And that's really where the game was won and lost. LaSalle has a lead for essentially the whole game, but when this becomes like a double-digit lead, LaSalle up as many as 15, like they were just in control so long that it didn't matter that Temple had a nice surge at the end. And Mashburn didn't have a great game shooting, was 6 of 19, heated up in the second half. Quante Berry played his best game in a Temple uniform. He did have 5 turnovers, but 15 rebounds, 18 points, 8 of 14, and 15 rebounds for this guy. He stuck his nose in there. He had 15 of their 42 rebounds for the game. So a really
Okay.
good game for him. I've long said ever since the Lynn Greer suspension that he's the one guy that can take advantage of the minutes that are going to be there. With how Fisher's talked about him at the AAC Media Day and across other when our guys at the Full Court Network interviewed him, this was clearly a guy that had expectations for. So it's nice to see him continue to play well. He's probably played his two best games in a Temple uniform the last 2 games they played. But I look at rebounds, I look at turnovers, and that's where this game was won and lost, Kyle. It's not that hard, but to see Temple play like that in the first half was disappointing because I still think this can be a very good team in the AAC. I still have very lofty expectations for them, but just to see it unfold like that in the first half was definitely discouraging. But I'll get to the good now for LaSalle. Corey McKeithen, Kyle, set his third different career high in points. He had never scored 20 points in a game when he was at Rider, and he's had a 25 point, a 27 point, and now a 28-point game. He was absolutely sensational. 10 of 19 from the field, 3 of 6 from three, 4 assists, 2 steals. According to ESPN, not credited with a turnover either, Kyle. And with how much he had the ball in his hands, that was terrific. Anytime their offense gets bogged down this year, he's become a go-to guy for them. He sets the tone on both ends. Like he's almost becoming like when Brickus and Brantley left, you miss your initiator and your crafty point guard that can score and can dish in Brickus. You also lose a bull of an on-ball defender in Khalil Brantley. And this guy, Corey McKeithen, has been able to provide that in both areas. He's come in and he's played so well on both ends, and he's been able to pick up that slack of the guys that left. So he's been really good. I look at Jaleel White. He was only 3 of 13, Kyle, but he played a very good game. 5 of 5 from the free throw line. Had a big and one in the second half when Temple was starting to come back. Hit some free throws late to really ice this one. 2 steals, 12 boards as well in this game. So you can look at the field goals, but Jaleel White was very good in this game. And you look at the bigs they brought in. Meech Lilly, 13 points, 2 of 4 from the three-point line. His activity on the glass was huge. Grabbed 6 boards in this one. And hey, I want to give some love to Mac Etienne, man. Played 12 minutes, 7.6 boards, 4 offensive rebounds in that 6 that he had. Had a really good first half in this one. So very encouraging performance from LaSalle, a discouraging one with Temple because I think they have more talent than LaSalle does. And I predicted the upset on our spaces last week because I thought, hey, with the long layoff that LaSalle had, they've got some losses out of their system. Like they can bounce back at home in what it was an electric atmosphere. But I expected a lot more from Temple here. They're too good and they're too talented for a first half like that to happen to them. So I think they'll bounce back on Saturday against Villanova. But a bad first half from Temple and a very, very impressive performance all around from LaSalle. So they're going to play St. Joe's in the Big Five championship game. They're going to see their A10 rival again, but terrific atmosphere and a terrific game for the LaSalle Explorers who continue to impress, Kyle, and get off to a great start.
Yeah, and you said it best. They do continue to impress. And listen, we knew like going into this game it was going to be close. Temple can't win games if they're going to shoot 1 of 16 from three and they're going to turn the ball over 15 times. No team can. That's just numbers that you can't really overcome. Yet they still almost did. So a credit to them for coming back. They definitely made this game close, but at the end of the day, LaSalle played their butts off. They deserve to win this game. They deserve to be in the Big Five championship game, and it's going to be a very, very interesting matchup versus LaSalle on Saturday. So we're looking forward to that one. If they play, they might play 4 times this year now, which is something, Cope. I think we would all pay to see that for sure. All right, we're gonna move on. We could talk about that matchup all day. We're gonna move on to a little St. Joe's here because they played in the Legends Classic, the UKG Legends Classic, which you were at one of those games, so I'll let you get into that as well. But for those who were unaware, before this happened before Thanksgiving, but they beat Texas Tech 78-77. We previewed that game on our last episode a couple of weeks ago. Very, very encouraging, very strong performance from St. Joe's. It was a back and forth game. This game was, could have been won by either side. Texas Tech had a chance to win it at the buzzer. I thought that shot went down. It did not. I don't know how. but St. Joe's prevailed to move on to the championship game against Texas, another Big 12 team. Well, I guess not another Big 12 team because they moved to the SEC, and I'm still getting used to that conference realignment discussion for another day. But Texas ended up winning this one 67 to 58. It was a rock fight, as the score might indicate. Again, another back and forth one. St. Joe's was up four, I think, with about 5, 6 minutes left, something like that. And then Texas went on a little run. St. Joe's could not come back. Free throws and all those end of game things led it to be a 9 point victory for Texas, which I think might have been their largest of the game, just about. So unfortunately, they couldn't get the job done. But as I explained on Spaces, not this past week on Sunday, but last week with Aaron Bracey and Cope, obviously, this was almost like if you're comparing it to a Major League Baseball playoff series or even an NBA playoff series where you're not expecting you're going on the road, you're not expecting to win both games, but if you can just get a split, bring it back to your home court or ice or field or whatever the analogy may be, like you'll take it. And then you go win the first game and you could win the second game and you don't end up, you blow a lead and it's like, damn, we should be up 2-0 right now, but you're still okay because you got that split. That's kind of like how I felt, at least. And Cope, you can tell me, your feelings on it, but that's how I felt after these two games, where it was like, damn, they beat a Texas Tech team that I think at the time was ranked ninth in KenPom. They hadn't really played anybody yet, but they were shooting the lights out. They were, obviously a Big 12 team themselves. They were projected highly coming in and projected to win this game coming in. And you won that game and you're like, great, this is awesome. And then they were winning and playing well against Texas. I think the announcers were saying how they had the athleticism of a Big 12 or SEC school and singing our praises. This is great. And then unfortunately, they can't close out the game and they lose to Texas. But you still take away the split, because if you had gone into that tournament thinking that you were going to split between Texas and Texas Tech, you take it every time. So I don't know if that's how you felt, Cope, but I thought it was more positive than negative, even though they did lose that game to Texas. But how did you feel about St. Joe's in the Legends Classic?
Yeah, you absolutely take the split. I think you're right. You would have liked to see them win both because they were up late in that game against Texas. So I'll quickly go over both here. The Texas Tech game, barn burner. It went late. It was a terrific game, and St. Joe's was able to pull it out, even though they didn't score as much as they did in the first half. Texas Tech let Eric Reynolds get loose, and you're not going to win many games if that happens. 8 of 17, made 6 of his 11 threes, was very aggressive and hunting his shot as he always is. He was terrific. And I thought potentially, Kyle, you could look at this and say, hey, Xavier Brown was only 3 of 10. He played 39 minutes, 13 of 13 from the free throw line, 6 assists, 2 steals, a terrific game from him, even when the shot wasn't falling, to still put up 20. He was very good. Rasheer Fleming was very good, although he fouled out of this game, and they're going to need him to stay out of foul trouble because it's happened to him a couple times this year, with 14 and 7. And they withstood a superhuman performance from JT Toppin. I mean, this guy is just like a vacuum on the glass. I said on our spaces, I think he's got magnets in his hands because that ball just finds him. He just has a nose for the ball, and he felt like he got to every single rebound. He had 22 and 18 rebounds, including 12 offensive boards in this one. He was terrific. Darion Williams, the Nevada transfer, 7 and 19, he did have 18 points. Like, there's some players. There's a good Texas Tech team. It wouldn't surprise me if they find themselves in the top 25 at one point. But a terrific win for them over a Big 12 team that was very good, and at this point going into this game was right outside that top 25. And St. Joe's shot the ball well, 12 of 22 from the three-point line, even though they didn't rebound well in this game. And then you go to the Texas game, and it was the opposite. They were dominating the boards against a team that's probably going to be, middle of the pack, upper tier of the SEC, and a very competitive SEC this year. They just didn't shoot the ball well that game, and that's what did them in. The Texas defense, I mean, they're physical. Like, you can just tell, like, that's what a Power 4 team looks like. Size, athletes, speed, length, athleticism, like, they have it all. They have the best 2-point defense according to KenPom. Caden Shedrick's been very good holding down the paint for them. And they were physical, and they bothered Eric Reynolds. I mean, 1 of 10 in this game, 1 of 7 from the 3-point line, just 6 points, but they still gave themselves a chance. Rasheer Fleming, 16, Kyle, and 20 rebounds in this one, 3 steals and 2 blocks. Yeah. He was terrific. Xavier Brown, 5 at 13 at 15 in this one. Those were the only two guys, Fleming and X Brown in double figures. But they played well. They played well defensively, especially. I think that was what was encouraging against this team that's got some scores on it in Texas was that they defensively, and Billy Lang said this after the game, they played well enough defensively to win this game. It just came down to turnovers, some late game execution, some missed free throws. They were 9 of 17 from the line in this one. That's where it came down to. Messed up a couple pick and roll coverages and let the roll guy get free in the second half. It was just some mistakes in the second half at critical junctures that sunk them on an otherwise good game from them. So you'll take the split. If you haven't watched this Trey Johnson from Texas,
He's something else.
wow,
Yeah.
that guy is good. He's a competitive son of a gun. 7 of 18 in this one, Kyle. Was 4 of 12 in the first half, 3 of 6 in the second. He took some big shots and hit some big shots late. And Rodney Terry was, I asked him about him and he was like, hey, him and Kevin Durant draw some comparisons here, the way that they're competitive and have a knack for scoring. Like, he's going to be a top pick in the draft, and that guy's going to be a player. So this was a great test for St. Joe's. Would have been nice to see him go 2-0. You'll take the split. It was a good weekend for the most part up until maybe that last 3 to 5 minutes of that second half in the Texas game. Really good 2 days up in Brooklyn for the Hawks.
Yeah.
Win over Texas Tech that'll follow them all the way to the selection show.
Yeah. And I think it was John Rothstein, but also a few other people that had tweeted that this win against Texas Tech kind of erased the Central Connecticut State loss. I think I agree. That was bad, but this was really, really good. And, not that Selection Sunday, they're going to look at moral victories, but the Texas game could be seen as that and, how they competed and whatnot. But obviously the wins are what matter the most and what they're going to be looking at. And the Texas Tech win is phenomenal now. And I think will still be phenomenal come March. And hopefully that can help propel them if they need to be propelled into the tournament to do so there. Let's go on to another tournament that happened this past week. The Thumbtack Sunshine Slam, which I cannot pronounce when we had Coach Spiker on the spaces, but I got it now because of that. With Drexel, of course, they played Purdue Fort Wayne and Chicago State in back-to-back days. They lost to Purdue Fort Wayne 87-81. They beat Chicago State 83-71. So we're going to go over those now. I'll say one thing was concerning. Now, Purdue Fort Wayne, pretty good team. I don't know if too many people were familiar with them at this juncture, but ranked to 120 in Ken Palm, they can shoot the lights out. It's something that Coach Spiker talked about on the spaces, and they did. I had it up in front of me, but they shot a really good number against Drexel. It was 63.9% from the field, 43.5% from three. Concerning for Drexel, for sure. And I believe Chicago State also shot in the 40s from three against them as well, even though Drexel won that game. So there were some positives, some negatives to take away from the Sunshine Slam down there in Florida. But ultimately, 1-1 in this little midseason tournament. So, Cope, what were your takeaways from Drexel after their loss to Purdue Fort Wayne and their win over Chicago State?
Well, I'll first say I bought Baller TV for $5 because I was off work this week. Wanted to watch this game.
Yeah.
I was during the day on a Monday. Figured I would tune in. I was 12:30 game. Was looking for something to do, so I bought Baller TV. Yeah, it was only $5. There was some Tom Gola Arena ESPN Plus broadcast type blunders in this one where the camera just doesn't pan down the court. I get a text saying, "Oh, the game is live," and I look on the screen and I there's a clock with 20 minutes on because they're warming up. So you could watch warm-ups, I guess, if you wanted. So loser is me for buying Baller TV. Just another wrench in us college basketball sickos being able to actually consume these games. But anyway, I digress. It was a good first half. They were up double digits in the first half, but the second half, the shots weren't falling, and Purdue Fort Wayne was just able to drive and kick. They got a bunch of good looks at threes. With them their guards able to get 2 feet in the paint, and that's what sunk them here. Defensively, it was not. Both sides, it was not a good second half from Drexel, and against a good mid-major team, played very well in the first half. They did, but the second half on both ends, it just was not good enough. And Purdue Fort Wayne, even the last, I'd say 5 to 6 minutes of the first half, through the end of the game, like they controlled this one. They did. It was a very good game from the Mastodons. They played very well for 25 to 28 minutes of this one, and that's what it ended up being. They put together more complete 40 minutes than Drexel did, but very concerning defensively in the second half. But hey, Cole Hargrove, 19, 8 of 10, 2-point field goals in this game, 7 boards, 4 assists. He continues to impress and be very, very good for Drexel. So there, you see performances like that, and you're encouraged. Shane Blakeney, 12 off the bench. William Garcia adds then 11 points off the bench. Shocking that he's playing that much, given that he's such a late ad, but he's been able to contribute for him and be their seventh guy. But yeah, concerning because it would have been a really good mid-major win for them to beat Purdue Fort Wayne, and then they beat up on Chicago State, who's probably like a bottom 10, bottom 15 team in the country. So nice that they won a game. It was against somebody that's no good, but it would have been really nice to see him win this game. Defensively, though, lot they have to improve on. They got to guard the ball better, and then once that happens and somebody gets by you, and you let some 3-point shooters shoot for Purdue Fort Wayne that are on fire, and you give them good looks, not gonna go your way. So a split, but the one win was whatever. Chicago State's bad.
Yeah, yeah, they are. I believe going into the game they were 360 in Ken Palm. So obviously not the best there. And you did mention losers. We are going to get back to winners and losers next week. We figured with this week, kind of just give the lay of the land because we were off the last week or so. So just for your viewing information there. But we are going to get back to that. And I'm not going to call you a loser for buying Baller TV. I am going to question a little bit of decision making because I think you got what you paid for. No disrespect to Baller TV, but I mean, maybe a little bit. I don't know. I haven't heard good things. I hadn't even heard of it until this year. So we have some vendettas against some alternate streaming
If
services
I'll
for
put it this
sure.
way, ready? If Flow Hoops is Frontier Airlines, then Baller TV is Spirit.
Well, then they're going to be bankrupt soon.
That's what I'll say. Hand up on my part. Mistake. I watched some basketball. It like
I'm
I
not
was
going
able.
to blame you for watching the Big Five. I will never blame you for watching the Big Five.
Yeah, you can't get mad at me for wanting to watch college hoops.
No,
Can't
no,
get mad at me for that.
no. Baller TV. I don't know. I don't know about that one. That's just I guess for the future. So there's that.
Exactly.
All right, we got one more tournament to go over, and then we can get into a couple previews, or at least things to look forward to for next week. We're going to do the Big Five preview episode later this week, so that episode's going to be all about the Big Five Classic. So if you're wondering where that is in this episode, it is not going to be in this episode. Like as we said earlier, it's going to be in a separate one. So we're just going to go over one more thing, a couple more things here, and then we'll wrap up and look forward to later in the week. But of course, Cope, we talk about the Cathedral Classic, which did not go well for Penn. Did not go well for Penn here. They lost to Navy. They did end up beating Maine. They lost to Elon on Sunday. So 1-2 on their home floor this past weekend. And as we talked about in Spaces on Sunday as well, it might be one of those years for Penn, which I didn't think we would say going into the year, even though roster looked a lot different. I'll never doubt Steve Donahue. I think he's a great coach. And going into the Ivy League, you never know what can happen to get one of those top 4 spots, and they still can. Ivy League play hasn't happened yet. I did not expect them to be in the 300s of Kent Palm, which they are right now at 307. And losing to a team in Navy who's on the same level right now, I wasn't really expecting that. Maine was a nice win, of course, but Elon losing by 15, it was concerning. This has been a concerning year for Penn so far. Obviously, we saw the Nova loss by 40. Not that we were expecting Penn to win that game, but to lose by that much is it's definitely concerning. It's not fun for Penn. So your thoughts on the Cathedral Classic and the state of Penn right now as we do head into this next weekend of the Big Five Classic, but just your thoughts on Penn and the Cathedral Classic.
Look, it was nice for them to get a win, but again, I still saw some offensive and defensive struggles here. Like the Navy loss is bad. That's a sub 300 team.
Yeah.
You have to you have to win that game, man. You have to win that game. And for them to give up 86, Navy is not a good 3-point shooting team. They were 15 of 32 in this one. They only made 9 2-point field goals. They made 15 threes. And that's where it was won and lost. I think another thing is here, like, they got to get Sam Brown going. They do because Ethan Roberts was great. He won Ivy League Player of the Week. He was first team All Cathedral Classic. But Sam Brown in the Navy loss, 11 points, 1 of 7 from three, and then in the Elon loss, he only had 3 points. He's too good of a player, too good of a shooter for this to happen. So I think that it was 1 of 10 in the Elon game. So you want to see him going. Ethan Roberts is really like scoring wise, the guy's been as advertised, has been very good. But I was hoping that him and Sam Brown could kind of be like a Batman Robin type type here. And Penn, they haven't shot the three well percentage wise. They just haven't, which is concerning. And there's still some shuffling going on in the lineup. Like, look, the Ivy League play is really all that matters for them. And Nicholas Polanowski, he started a game. O'Berty started a game. Like there's some shuffling still going on in the starting lineup here that look, with a brand new team that's only a handful of games in, that's 8 games in, there's still some experimenting going on. Steve Donahue's still trying to find out what his best lineups are. And that's okay. You want the results, but there's some youth here. There's plenty of new players. They have to get used to each other. They do. So yes, it's concerning, but at the same time, like we don't know what the best version of them looks like yet. Quite frankly, it looks like they're still trying to figure that out. So the losses were concerning, but they're still a work in progress. They still will be as we get closer to Ivy League play, but they're going to play some good teams, Kyle. Like they're going to play VCU, who I think is going to win the A10. They're going to play Rider, whatever, but then they have 2 bye games coming up against George Mason and against Penn State, who's 7-1, has been very good this year. And then their first Ivy League play, they got to go up to Dartmouth, the worst trip in the Ivy League. I've done it. It sucks. Like, they're going to play some hard teams here, and they're going to have to find out a lot about themselves and get this thing corrected and find out quickly like what will work best for us and put us in a position to succeed, because it has not been good right now, not been good defensively, and they haven't shot the three ball well, and they really need to get Sam Brown going because him and Ethan Roberts can be a dynamic duo, the two of them. So it was concerning because I really thought there was a shot they could go 3-0 against some lesser competition, but it just seems like they're not there quite yet either and are still very much a work in progress.
Yeah, and I think after the Villanova game, that's kind of what Steve Donahue mentioned was that like, hey, like we're gonna have to reassess a little bit. Obviously, that was before the Cathedral Classic, so that didn't go well for them. I don't even think reassess is the right word. I think just like, hey, like we got to figure out what we have. We're gonna go back into a little training camp mode here because they had the little 9-day break or whatever it was. So, and he also said too, like you'd rather have these games out of the way in November and December on Sunday than have it in February, which is true. So I'm glad they're trying to figure things out now because hopefully this can correct itself at least a little bit over the course of the season. Because I mean, they're 361st in defensive 3-point percentage right now, 293 in offensive in that category as well. This team doesn't have any offense, and when you're letting up that many threes, it's a problem. So hopefully they can at least get one of those things figured out. I think defense is probably easier because not that all of defense is just effort, but a lot of defense can be boiled down to effort. So if they can get some of those things corrected, I think they can be okay. I don't think that will happen against VCU, but I will say I will be at that game, Cope. I am making the trip down to Richmond. I'm very, very excited for it. I will be attending Siegel Center, which has been on my bucket list of college basketball venues. So very excited for that one. Of course, we'll bring you guys coverage from that one as well. But yeah, Penn, concerning. I know they have a young team. They're shuffling things, but hopefully they can figure it out here soon enough. All right, Cope. Outside of the Big Five Classic, we've got some games coming up here this week. We got 2 games happening the day this episode releases on Tuesday. Cincinnati, number 16 in the country, making the trip to the Finn, take on Villanova. And then a battle of 2 really good mid-major teams taking place at Hagan Arena. Princeton at St. Joe's. I will be at that game. You will be at Cincinnati Villanova. So why don't we take our picks? Well, not really take our picks, but make our picks on these games. Talk about the games we're going to. I'll let you go first for Cincinnati traveling to Villanova. That should be a great one, but let me know your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so Cincinnati got a bump today with the new AP poll coming out. They've moved up to 14. The first net ranking came out today, and they came in at number 11.
There you
So
go.
the metrics love this team. They're very good. They haven't played anybody. They played at Georgia Tech and they beat them. And they beat them pretty good. And that's the best team they've played. Other than that, they played nobody. So it's a step up for them too. But I'm sold on them. I'm a big fan of Wes Miller. This is far and away the best team that he's had. Believe Dan Skillings from the Philly area is going to play in this game. Up front, Kyle, I think is where this obviously like you got to do your best to keep Eric Dixon at bay. And I think that Cincinnati has two guys that can certainly do that. Number one being Dylan Mitchell, comes over from Texas, leads his team in steals. Really nice size, a very, very good athlete that I think they're going to put him on Eric Dixon, as well as, hey, one of the best shot blockers in the country in fifth year, Aziz Bandago. Currently number six in America, Kyle, 2.8 blocks a game. Pretty good. Pretty good. That's only behind Magoon Guath from San Diego State, Ryan Kalkbrenner, and Janai Broom. Those are a couple of the names ahead of him. So he's doing pretty good.
Pretty
Doing
good.
pretty good.
Yeah.
So they have the bodies inside to bother Eric Dixon. I still think he's going to put up a lot of points. I still think he's going to have a very good game. But if you're Cincinnati, you have to, like what you have here in terms of, well, like we have bodies we can throw at him. And I think that's where the game is going to be won and lost. And I really like the guards that they have as well. Edgar and James, Kyle, you remember him?
I do, of
Probably before our
course.
time, but
Paula, very good.
his son, who goes by Jizzle James, is the starting point guard for this team,
I did
who's their
not know
third
that.
leading scorer. They have Simas Lukosius, who was at Butler previously, who can really shoot it from three. Like, I like the pieces they got here, Kyle. I'm a big fan of this team. I think Wes Miller's a hell of a coach, and they're going to gear up and they're going to show people like how good of a brand Cincinnati is and have a really good year. I think they're a dark horse to make a second weekend of the tournament. They're that good.
Hmm.
So defensively, I think they're going to make life very, very difficult for Villanova, and I'm going to take Cincinnati to win and win pretty handily as well, Kyle. But if you're Villanova, you need to play up to the competition. This is the best team you're going to play until you get into conference play. We have this one circled on the calendar because this is a potential game that could get us in the tournament as an at-large. I think those hopes are away at this point, but this is a massive game for them. This is the best non-conference game that they have and would be massive if they could win it. But I don't think they will. They're scoring, they're shooting. Defensively, this team is terrific. Are the numbers inflated? I think so because they have the number one effective field goal percentage offense and defense. But again, they haven't played anybody. Arkansas, Pine Bluff, Morehead State, Nichols, Northern Kentucky, Georgia Tech, Alabama State. They haven't played anybody. So it's a step up for them, but I do think that they'll pull this out. They haven't played anybody. The numbers may look gaudy, but I believe they will sustain them to a T. This is going to be a very good team. Just I don't believe Villanova is on their level.
No, I don't think so either. This might be like you said, the best team the West Miller's had at Cincinnati. And Dylan Mitchell, too. I don't know if you know the site, evanmia.com. It's this guy, Evan Miyakawa, who's I don't know the right way to word it, but he's an analytics guy. He's a very, very big analytics guy. Very popular on the college basketball Twitter community as well. And he has a player rating system on the site as well as team ratings, which, we can get into another time, but has Dylan Mitchell third in his player ratings this year behind Janai Broom and Zakai Ziegler. So pretty good
Pretty good.
company. Cam Jones right behind him, Cooper Flagg at number 5. So pretty good player there. Cincinnati's a great team. And I know they haven't really played anyone outside of Georgia Tech. They did beat the crap out of Georgia Tech. And Villanova, probably a little better than Georgia Tech, but I don't know if by much at this point. So we'll see. It's gonna be an interesting one. I think that Cincinnati will win this game. I hope Villanova can and at least keep it close, if not. But this is a game they need to win. Hopefully they can win, and they have the benefit of being at home. So I'm sure that the Finn will be bumping on this one. But I'm of course going to be at the St. Joe's and Princeton game, which going into the year, Princeton was rated higher. I think right now on KenPom, St. Joe's is higher. Princeton's at 110, St. Joe's at 87. So St. Joe's, I think, is projected to win this game as of right now. I think they will win this game, but it is going to be a very tough matchup. Obviously, if you remember, because obviously we covered Penn, so we've covered a lot of Princeton over the last couple of years. Xavier Lee, Caden Pierce, they're still there. Somehow, seems like they've been there forever. They were freshmen on that team that beat Penn in the Ivy League semifinals in 2023. They're still there. They're still really good. Xavier Lee, 31st in assist rate in the country. Score the basketball. Caden Pierce, is a double-double machine, as we've come to know the last few years. They got CJ Happy, Dalen Davis as well, who have been contributors for them. Some things they do well, they don't turn the ball over, 25th in the country in that. They shoot the three really well, 31st in the country at that, at 38.6%. So as you're listening to this as a St. Joe's fan, you go, not too good, because the St. Joe's three-point defense has been skeptical over the last few years, to say the least. However, if they have that defensive performance like they did against Texas, I think they can be in good shape. It's going to be tough. This team is loaded. This team is good. They have maybe not had the start they wanted to. They lost a tough home one to Loyola Chicago, who I think will be up there in the A10, as we've talked about before. They also lost back-to-back games to Wright State and Texas State, who are decent mid-major opponents as well for them. So kind of surprising to see them lose that many games this early in the season. However, they're still a good team. I think it'll be a really tough test. A really, really good mid-major game. I think mid-major Madness is probably going to be tweeting all about this. I have no doubt about that. I'm going to go with St. Joe's in this one, though, because I think the scoring prowess will be maybe a little bit too much for Princeton to overcome. I think it'll be a dogfight, though. I think it'll be a battle, but I do think St. Joe's, after playing against some of the teams that they've played against recently, they'll have this experience of playing against tough teams. And I think at Hagen, they'll be able to pull this one out. If it was at Princeton, maybe I'd think a little bit differently, but I think being home for this one, and with the opponents they just played, the level that they've played up to, I think in the past couple of years they've played up to competition pretty well. They've also played down to competition a little bit, as we've talked about on the show as well. But I do think they'll ultimately pull this one out and beat Princeton. And those are going to be some very, very, very good matchups on Tuesday. We're looking forward to. Not much else the rest of the week, because obviously we're gearing up for the Big Five Classic on Saturday. So, Cope, any final thoughts before we sign off here?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the Princeton St. Joe's game as well. I think they'll win. This isn't the greatest Princeton team. They have the two best players in the Ivy League, but
Yes.
not, this isn't the Princeton of the last 2 years. It certainly is not. They're not very big. They have some depth, but it's young depth. Like Dalen Davis taking a step forward. They still